wanted to leave the book open, and, and a number of readers have complained about that, and I don't blame them in a way. I don't mind a lack of closure. I just finished a novel by Anne Enright called The Gathering, which won the Booker Prize in 2007. It was a great novel, and just leaves a question mark over, oddly enough, the very issue of whether somebody was sexually abused in childhood, although this is a male protagonist, dead when the novel opens. I didn't mind that at all, but a lot of readers do want closure on these issues. And so that was, that was another thing that I left sort of open was Alex. I sort of left it to the reader based on what the reader knows from encounters with Alex and from Nan's thoughts about Alex. What does she think Alex will do? Now, Alex, the way I tried to set her up was that she's just deeply aghast and ashamed and appalled that the sexual abuse that she's sure happened went on sort of under her nose, so to speak, that her daughter was put in such jeopardy when she was in her care. And she can't live, she has a fairly kind of perfect self-image of herself. She's pretty demanding of herself, and she can't live with that. And she genuinely feels that she's not good for her daughter, and wasn't good for her daughter even when she was trying her best to be.
See, now I got a little more of a unsure, floundering sort of woman, not one who was so positive that.
Well, she's really caught off balance by
what's
happened.
Yeah. But I guess being Nan's daughter, Nan is such a egocentric doer that you'd have to think her daughter would be a little bit of self-assured and able to make things happen as well. They were an interesting mother-daughter pair, really. And the story is so complicated because you give our background lives of the mother Alex as a child, mother Nan as a diplomat's wife, kind of raising a daughter but not really connecting with her. So there are story levels here that I think readers will enjoy. But I have to ask you about the tattooing. Now, I know years ago that you told me your daughter had gotten tattooed. So did this character of the tattooer come from somebody that your daughter introduced you to?
Yes, she's based on a young woman who's a really good friend of my daughter's in college, and who was her tattoo artist.
And so this, I think you told me she got the tattoo long before it became so popular that it is today. Do you remember what year she got her tattoo?
Oh, 1992, probably.
And so
she was tattooed over most of her body. She had a quite elaborate tattoo
was that
setup.
far? Oh.
Yeah, she was exhibited at an international tattoo convention as the work of art.
Oh my gosh!
And she had to take her clothes off in order to do this. I have photographs because she was featured in an article in I think it's called International Tattoo magazine.
But that was before it became everybody. Not everybody, because I don't have a tattoo.
Well, I do, for research.
For research, you went to do it. Can we ask where?
Yes, it's actually in a decent place. It's sort of on my thigh, but you won't see it here. It's in a place that can be exhibited or not, as I choose.
Good. Well, I do wonder about these people who end up putting them on an ankle or a shoulder blade, and I think, when they're 70, are they going to want to show that? I don't know. Everything changes. But again, I wondered about the research because the character in the story is so, well, she's just a dominant sort of person too. She takes care of her life and
because she was a foster child, and so she grew up really having to take responsibility for herself. And she projects a lot of her helplessness and her trappedness, or her sort of domineered overness as a child onto Jane, and that's part of her bond with Jane and why she helps Nan and Jane.
Well, that was it. Jane, as a child living with a grandmother away from home, I thought, how many nights is she going to go to bed crying for the parents? But children are so resilient that she loves the grandmother and she loves the people that make up their little world that they develop there.
And she's having fun. She's actually having more fun than she was having back in Seattle, going back and forth to preschool and being hovered over by probably, in spite of the abuse issue, by a mother who was probably too attentive and too on board, sort of. So she's actually having a good time.
Well, and she ends up safe. So we'll come back and talk about the prison and the trial
Yeah, I don't want to
scene.
give too much away.
Yeah. We're going to take just a quick break right here and come back and continue talking with Anne Harleman about her book, The Year She Disappeared.
Welcome to Lowell National Historical Park. I'm Park Ranger Maria Papish. Today I'm standing in the weave room of the Boot Cotton Mills Museum. The Boot Mills complex parallels the story of Lowell. In the 1840s, the boot mill produced more than 10 million yards of coarse drilling, fine shirting, and printed cloth a year. By 1890, more than 2,000 workers operated over 4,000 looms and other textile machinery. Today, as you pass through the weave room, you'll experience the roar of the looms and see one of the largest industrial history exhibits in the nation. For more information, you can give us a call at 978-970-5000 or look up our webpage, www.nps.gov/LOWE, L-O-W-E.
When did this go? Welcome back to The Writers. Anne Harleman and I are talking about her book. When did this come out? I think it must have been last
March of this year.
Of this year. So
just this past March.
I think I had it in the summer and was reading it and got quite caught up with it. And I just kind of reviewed recently. But I wanted you to tell us about HOWDY. That stands for the Handbook on Orientation for Wives and Dependents. Is there really such a thing?
No.
All right.
But interestingly, you're the first person who's asked that question. Everyone else just assumes that there is such a thing and that it reads the way the excerpts that I give read from it. A lot of it is patterned after an orientation booklet that I was given when I went on faculty exchange to the Soviet Union in 1976-77.
Okay.
And I wanted to draw on, I gave that to Nan as part of her background, having been behind the Iron Curtain, because to me it's like, it's one of the sort of broadly interesting things that I've lived through.
Yeah.
Because it's a world that's gone.
Yep.
So if I don't talk about it, eventually there won't, as time goes by, there won't be anybody who remembers it. And so I wanted to do that, and because she's involved in a lot of chase and pursuit stuff, and and her son-in-law Gabriel, who's very well-connected surgeon, very politically connected in Seattle, and hires private detectives, and he's on her trail, so she is being looked for, and she's right to feel pursued. And I wanted her to have at least a little something that she could fall back on to say, well, I've had some, because she's constantly trying to make her life experience be of use in this peculiar situation that she's in.
And just knowing that somebody's following you, you would think, well, what do I do? And it would be easy for her to come up with don't make yourself obvious or duck into a door. I can't remember. She went into some building and
duck into a door.
through
See
it.
if you can get a sight line on the person. Double back.
Yeah.
Don't turn around and look. Don't let him know you're being followed. And some other stuff that I.
So HOWDY was
in
something that the diplomats' wives would have made fun of and yet have read carefully, even if it's not real. And when you were in the Soviet Union, I would think that the State Department would have been telling you not to go in certain areas, not to flash money, not to do this.
And I was also interested in this idea of the theme of the sheltered life of the Foreign Service people, because I had seen that twice, once in 76, 77 when I was on exchange in Moscow, and then when I was a Fulbright lecturer in Poland in 1980, 81, which was the first year of Solidarity. Very interesting time to be behind the Iron Curtain.
Wow.
Because the academic exchange was sort of semi-official, we had a lot of contact with people in the State Department, and so we had a pretty clear sense of how they lived and what their preoccupations were. And I wanted to get some of that in because I thought it was interesting, I think, and something that many people, readers might not know about.